Shalom, I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. Good to be back. Good to be back. This is our next episode of Astrotheology. Okay, so we are on the chapter of St. Thomas. St. Thomas. All right, so this is coming from, again, The Devil's Pulpit. This is the book we're reading for this series of Astrotheology videos. The Devil's Pulpit by Dr. Reverend Robert Taylor. All right, you can get this as a free download. Okay, free download on the internet. Make sure you get it, okay? This is actually a really, really excellent book. Whether you agree with it or not, he will cause you to think and think about things and ask questions that you haven't asked before. At least it's been that way for me and for people I've spoken to about this book. So we're going to give it a minute before we get started. Okay, let me check my connection to make sure that the connection, we have audio. Sometimes we have problem with the sound, okay? So just give me 1 second. Let's check to make sure we got audio. All right, let's see. Let's check to make sure. All right, so we're good. We're good. All right. In 1 second. So I'm going to give it just a few minutes to let people get in, okay? And get my screen set up, and then we'll be in business. We'll be in business, all right? So one moment. Uh-oh. Hold on, y'all. Oops. There we go. Is that it? No. So today I think is going to be interesting. At least I found it to be interesting. It's quite, I want to kind of give you a teaser, but I don't want to spoil it for you, you know? Yeah, I want to give you a teaser, but I don't want to spoil it. So I will just let it go at that. But now, all right, so get the document up. We're on page, I believe we're on page 175. The chapter is called St. Thomas. Okay, the chapter is St. Thomas. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Y'all will remember that Thomas was the guy who was the apostle, rather, who wanted to stick his finger into the Christ figure to see if it was really him who had been resurrected. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started. All right. So I'm going to do what I always do, is turn my camera off, and we'll begin reading. So for those of you who are new, this is your first time being with us, I want to say shalom and welcome. And for those of you who have been with us from the start, I want to give you a special acknowledgement, right? Because, hold on, y'all, 1 second. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, sorry about that. I want to give you a special acknowledgement for the discipline that you've demonstrated, and also your interest, right? Because this is not easy, right? It's not entertainment, and well, it's fun, but it's not, you know, the kind of stuff you see on most YouTube videos. This requires some discipline and some thought. So let's go ahead and begin. This is the Devil's Pulpit. This lecture was given on March 13th, 1831. March 13th, 1831. All right. So the scripture is John chapter 20, verse 24. John chapter 20, verse 24. It reads, "But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when the Christ figure came. The other disciples therefore said unto him, We have seen the capital Lord. But he said unto them, That's Thomas said to the other 11 apostles. Except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. There you are. That's where the doubting Thomas phrase came from. All right, now let's go right into the sermon. Okay, so we are on page 176. I'm sorry, 177. Okay, it reads, "No more will I, but my capital God, then Tommy, you will be damned to all eternity, you unbelieving wretch, you devil's chaplain. You'll go to hell as sure as your name is Tommy." And here have we the origin of that curious association of the idea, which obtains not merely in our common English phrase, hell. Y'all got that? Hell. So the author makes the claim that Tommy, Tommy, is associated with hell, Hell. Let me read it again. And here we have the origin of the curious association of idea. So it's an association of idea, which obtains not merely in our common English phrase hell, Hell, and Tommy, Tommy. So not only in English, but other names. So now let's see how he develops this. But which is found in the language of every nation on which the sun, sun, hath ever shone, from the Ganges to the Nile, from the Nile to the Thames. In India, in Egypt, Greece, and Italy, in the language of every nation in which a belief of the existence of hell is to be found, and wherever there are knaves and fools, and beliefs is to be found, hell and Tommy, or the terms answering in their languages to those terms, stand as a natural and inseparable. You know what? Sorry about that, y'all. I forgot to show to scroll up. So my apologies for that. I'm reading and y'all can't see it. So let me just go through it slowly for the video, okay, for the recording. If you want to go back and see this, just pause it so you can read it, okay? All right, so here we go. So we were somewhere in here. So we're here. See Hal and Tommy? Y'all see that? All right. So it says, or terms answering in their language to those terms would be Hal and Tommy, stand in as natural and inseparable in association with each other as boiled beef and mustard. Boiled beef and mustard. Isn't that how they make corned beef, y'all? You could not think of the one without immediately thinking of the other. Now, in today's terms, I have not heard Tommy, Tommy, and hell associated with one another. But maybe some of you in the audience can, some of you who are listening in, viewing, and Google Tommy, Tommy, and hell as in one phrase and see what you come with, and then cut and paste it and put it in the chat for the others when they come back. And also for me, because I don't know that phrase, Tommy. But it's going to come up again. You can believe that. The author's going to bring those back up again. All right, so let's continue. It continues with the reason. Do y'all notice that the paragraph is cut off? I wonder what happened right here. Look at this, y'all, where the cursor is. It's cut off. You could not think of one without immediately thinking of the other. Now, should there be a period here? Or is there more sentence? I don't know, right? But let's continue here. All right. With the reason and the science of this curious association of idea, again, that association of idea is Tommy and hell. I will presently repay your attention, only requesting you for a few minutes to suspend your admiration on the peg of your observation of the parity of the association of the devil and Judas. So I believe the author is saying, stop associating the devil with the Jew with Judas. I believe that's what he's saying. And hell and Tommy. Okay, so in other words, he's saying be open-minded. Don't associate the devil with Judas or hell or Tommy. All right, so let me read that again. With the reason and the science of this curious association of idea, I will presently repay your attention, only requesting you for a few minutes to suspend your admiration on the peg of your observance of the parity of the association of the devil and Judas and hell of Tommy. Yes, that's exactly what he's saying, what I said. In which, as Judas seems to be something worse than the devil, so Thomas is the climax or something worse than hell. You may go to hell and come back again, as we read of JC, the Christ figure, that he, quote, he descended into hell, but the third day he rose again, end quote. Whereas if he had gone to hell and Tommy, his soul must have been left in hell and his flesh would have seen corruption. That is, as far as a dead man could see anything. All right, so let me scroll up. All right, continuing. The passage in continuation of our text runs thus, quote, and after 8 days, again his disciples were within, and Thomas with them. Then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst and said, peace be unto you. Then said he to Thomas, reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither my hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said unto him, my capital Lord and my capital God, exclamation point. Then JC said unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. Now, this is something, y'all, I've always had a problem with in Christianity. And I'm going to tell you what the problem I've always had with believing. Why is it that believing in something that you have no reason to believe in other than someone said it to you, why is that important? More important than trusting, right? Trusting on the track record of a person or organization, right? So you have a documented history, a track record. Okay, well, based upon that track record, I could put some type of trust in you because I know your past behaviors, right? But to have faith about a future event that you say you're going to do, but I don't have any reason to believe it other than you said it. That just, for me, maybe not for you, but for me, that never sat well with me in my mind. It's like you hang out with some friends, right? And you're having faith that they got your back if you get in a tough situation, as opposed to you hanging out with some friends who you've been in tough situations before, right? And they stuck there with you through the tough times. Okay, so easy to trust them. But anyway, let me get back on topic. I've always had a problem with that. All right, next paragraph. Let me make sure we are positioned right on the screen. Be sure to add your questions, comments, even answer questions. Okay. Even and let me reduce this down because I don't need it this big like this, y'all. Let's see how that looks. Maybe we can get the whole page on the screen like we had before. Yeah, let me put it to we'll put it on 170 like we had it last time. How did I do that? Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to make it so y'all can see the screen. Like we had it last time. I don't know how I did that. Give me 1 second. Maybe it'll be all right like this. I want to get the 2-page view. I don't see 2-page view. Ah, shoot. Anyway, I'll just try this one last time, and if it doesn't go, we can just read. I don't want read mode. Shoot. Sorry about this, y'all. All right, so let me just position the page, and then we'll just get with it. All right, here we go. All right, there we are. That's where we need to be. Okay. On any attempt to give character of history to this beautiful allegorical grouping, nothing could be conceived grosser than the outrageous and monstrous absurdities and direct contradictions to itself. Okay, so he's saying there's a lot of problems with what the Christ figure just said, which the story so perverted presents us. The fool that could believe it could believe anything. The knave who would say that he believed it would say anything. In other words, what the Christ figure said, and what we just read, right? Place your finger here and you should believe, right? And all of that stuff, the author is saying that you have to be a tricky fellow to believe it, and maybe you're also crooked. That's what he's saying. So next paragraph. For he is supposed to be the body of man, presenting himself for the express purpose of demonstrating to the senses of his friends that he was no phantom, no shadow, no smoke, but might be seen and felt. In other words, the Christ was supposed to be showing, hey, look, I really, truly was resurrected. Here's my physical body. That's what the author is saying. And yet, coming into the room when the doors were shut, as most certainly nobody that was solid and substantial could possibly have done or even conceived to do. Let me read that again. And yet, coming into the room when the doors were shut, as most certainly nobody that was solid and substantial. Okay, so in other words, he's saying that a physical person could not have passed through a door, right? That's what he's saying. So maybe he's saying he had to be like a spiritual form passing through the door, because a fleshly person couldn't do that. And yet coming into the room when the doors were shut. Yes, that's what he's saying. So let's go to the next paragraph. All right. I think I see where he's going with this. And if the body were solid and could be seen and felt, then is the pretense that Christ had really been crucified and put to death, demonstrated to be a cheat and a lie by evidence as strong as ever was adduced to prove that a thing could be and not be at the same time. So I guess what the author is getting at is that the Christ could not have had a spiritual body and a physical body at the same time. That's what it sounds like to me. Let me read that paragraph again. And if the body were solid and could be seen and felt, then is the pretense. Okay, so I think what he means is that would be the lie, right? And if the body were solid and it could be seen and felt, then is the pretense. That's the lie. That the Christ had really been crucified and put to death, demonstrated to be a cheat and a lie by evidence, as strong as ever was adduced to prove that a thing could be and not be at the same time. Okay? So, for if the presence of a man alive in health and strength, you see him, you hear him, you touch him, you shake hands with him, you converse with him, you eat and drink with him, be not a proof that whatever had asserted that the man had been dead was a liar. Then there is no difference between lying and truth among men. And capital God Almighty should better take away the reason he has given us than have us be reasonable to insult us so offensively. Let me read that first sentence or two again. For if the presence of a man alive in health and strength, so on and so forth, you touch him, you shake hands with him, you converse with him, you eat with him, be not a proof that whoever had asserted that that man had been dead was a liar. Okay, so the author is saying that if you can touch this man, right, talk with him, he's obviously alive. Then whoever said that he was dead is a liar. That's what he's saying, because a dead person can't talk, walk, etc. Now, y'all make your own decisions as to whether you or not you agree with the author's reasoning here or his rationale. I'm only reading it and explaining what it means, but you have to decide, each one of you has to decide whether or not what the author is saying is logical, whether it makes sense to you, and whether or not you're going to accept it as reasonable or not reasonable. And remember, again, this is not to change your religion. This is to give you information to educate you so that you can think about and be more aware and make the decision yourself about what you believe and what you know. Okay? All right, next paragraph. Next paragraph. What I like about this book is that it causes you to think critically, and he gives you plenty of examples of critical thinking, okay, in action. Not all the testimony on earth, not all the host of heaven, not capital G-O-D himself, nor his almighty power could make it be, or seem to be, that the man who is found alive today had been really and truly dead any 2, 3, or 10 days before today. And the Christian religion, if such be its foundation, is founded on the most monstrous lie that ever falsehood framed or folly credited. Okay, so I see his point here. He's saying once you're dead, right? But this resurrection is a matter of faith and hope. But what the author is alluding to is that you've never seen anything dead come back to life. That's the author's point. No one has ever witnessed something dead for 2, 3 days come back to life. I mean, you could be on a hospital, let's say on a surgical table, right? And the person's heart stops beating, but that's not clinically dead, right? But this is what the author is saying. It's far-fetched. It's like a huge lie. That's what the author is saying. But the whole Christian faith is based upon this resurrection. All right, next paragraph. The only line in the whole romance, interesting that he calls it a romance, right? The only line in the whole romance, so who's being romanced? The apostle, well, the Christ figure is romancing the apostle, or is the writer of the story romancing you to get you emotionally involved, to get you to stop thinking and make beliefs and take action based upon your feelings. The only line in the whole romance on which relief of its monstrous inconsistency might hang is the supposition that Thomas and the rest of them, had such persons really existed. So now the author is calling into question whether or not the other apostles really ever existed, right? Because he says also that the Christ figure never really existed. Had such persons really existed, as I shall prove to you they never did, might have expressed their astonishment not at JC's being alive, but at the mistake they had made in supposing that he had ever been dead. Now, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Because it's more believable to think that, oh, we thought you were dead, but you're alive. Now, that's reasonable, right? But to think that, oh, you're dead and now you came back to life, well, that's a stretch, because nobody had ever saw that before, right? Except for the other resurrections that occur in the Bible. But y'all know what the author is trying to say, right? All right, so let's continue. He's saying that it's more reasonable to believe that he really wasn't dead in the first place. Right? So there was a mistake. He really wasn't dead. All right. So let's continue. Had such persons really existed, as I shall prove to you they never did, might have expressed their astonishment not at Jesus being alive, but at the mistake they made in supposing that he had ever been dead, of which his appearance, if a real appearance it were, was what would be called in all reason a sufficient proof to the contrary. In other words, proof that he was never dead would have been that they saw him alive in the flesh, right? So it would be, you know what this is like? This is an example of, let's say you go to the circus, right? And then the guy makes the elephant disappear. Okay, he makes the elephant disappear. Okay, so are you going to think that the elephant was never there to begin with, right? Or are you going to think the elephant is there, but you just can't see him, or something like that, right? Optical illusion. But anyway, let's look at some of the comments. Yashe, Shalom, my brother. Jerice, hello, scholars, welcome, welcome. Holistic Kev, peace fam, Shalom, Holistic Kev. Shalom. Let's continue, y'all. All right, let's continue. Let me know. Let me see. All right, let me pull it back up, y'all, then I'll be ready. Okay, so here we are. Here we are. All right. So we need to go down one paragraph. Okay. The cause of which mistake, still on the supposition of history, Christ himself might have explained as thus, quote, Pontius Pilate was my friend. He protected me from the rage of the mob by bringing forth another criminal dressed up in my clothes and saying, behold the man, while his wife, who was in the secret, sent me away in woman's clothes. All right, so that's his sarcasm. If history had been intended, which it certainly was not, this and this only would have been the historical reading. For whatever is not probable is not history, but romance. Now that's a good point, right? It's a very good point. What's not probable is romance. What's not probable is romance. Let me see. Roderick's point of view. Roderick says, yeah, I think when reading the Bible, you have to consider people's reaction and what they say in the story to see if it even makes sense. I think, yeah, Roderick, I think that's also with anything, right? Even when you deal in academics, even when you deal with in academics, because a lot of people will lie to try to boost their career or save their butt, right? They just make stuff up, or for social engineering purposes, right? For social engineering purposes. Okay. So let's go back to the document. I don't trust academics anymore. There was one, there was a time when I did, but I no longer trust academia from my experience. From my experience. All right. And y'all think about it. The academics, that's where the secret societies are. And the whole role of the academics is to maintain the status quo, right? It's the high priest. All right, let's continue. Page 180. But come we now to enucleation of the deep science involved in this romance. All right, so he's going to give us some deep science, y'all. You shall see the gospel rising above the low and groveling conceptions of the intolerant and impatient fools and dunces, whose vanity cannot bear that anybody should be wiser than themselves. Okay, that's the high priest, the pastor, right? The imam, the Moshe, the rabbi, all of the Hebrew Israelites, the leaders, right? Don't nobody know more than them. And presenting us with the beautiful drama, which had constituted the subject matter of the diegesis. The asterisk reads, hence the name of Mr. Taylor has given to his great historical work, the diegesis. So that's another one of Reverend Robert Taylor's books, y'all, diegesis. Y'all should get it. You know what? If I can find it, I might do the same thing with diegesis. You know, I might do that. All right. So it continues, which had constituted the subject matter of the diegesis, from which the compiler of Luke's gospel acknowledges his work to be a compilation. Okay, so Luke's work is a compilation. And of the 4 mystical books which were carried by the priest in the sacred procession of the goddess Isis in Egypt, and of which the purport was what that of our gospels to this day may demonstrably be proved to be a representation of natural history of the year. Let me repeat that. That is, that our gospels to this day may be demonstrably proven to be a representation of the natural history of the year, or the sun, sun, in passing through the year, under the pleasant fiction of an imaginary hero called Hercules and Aesculapius or Pius in Phoenicia, Osiris, Adonis, and Thomas in Syria, and Egypt, Krishna, in Judea, Jesus in Persia, Christus, in Greece, Apollo, Jupiter, and so forth. In Italy, Jesus, in Germany, Gaul, Britain, etc. So y'all see what he's saying? He said each of these nations or people groups, whatever you want to call them, the same deity, but different names. Y'all got it? Diegesis, if I remember correctly, these are the original writings that came out of Alexandria, Egypt. These were the original gospels created, penned by the Coptic Egyptians, according to the author, later translated into Latin, later translated into Greek, and then mystified and lied. And the lie was this. The lie is that the Gospels were originally written in Greek. Okay, but they were not. They were written in Greek. If I remember the story, go back to maybe video number 7 or 6. It's in there. It's in these videos. It was translated in Latin and then taken up into Europe, right? It was taken up into Europe, and then the Goths and the Vandals got a hold of them, and then they made a whole bunch more other changes with it. Okay, so that's the evolution of the diegesis to the current day Gospels. All right, so now let's continue. We are with, okay, so the author makes the point that the Gospels tell the story of the sun traveling through the sky from one year to the next, okay? And the deity is the hero, the imaginary hero is Hercules and Aesculapius, Osiris, Adonis, Thomas, so on and so forth, right? Just depends on what the country is, the deity's name will change. Next paragraph. This is some powerful information. If you know what you're looking at and you figure out how to use this, this is very powerful. Very, very powerful. The name, part, and character of St. Thomas among the dramatis personae of the evangelical pantomime is one of the most marked and beautiful, as it most clearly conducts the studious inquirer to the solution of the whole enigma. Y'all got that? Y'all got that? The name, part, and character of St. Thomas. What the author is telling us is the etymological meaning of Thomas, his role in the gospel, and his character, right? And by character, I think they're talking about he doubted, okay? He doubted. It says in the last sentence, as it most clearly conducts the studious inquirer. That means the studious person who asks questions. Asking questions is criticism, critical analysis. Y'all see it? In other words, the student who uses his critical analytical mind, that's the solution to this whole tricky problem. That's what the author is saying. All right, so let's scroll up. Asking questions, critical thinking, not accepting anything, doubting everything, right? And asking questions and making a decision once you get logical answers to your questions, based in science, not emotions and dogma and things that, were told to you and you don't know why, other than it was just told to you. All right, the name Thomas first occurs in the list of names of the 12 apostles in the 10th of Matthew's gospel. So Matthew chapter 10 is where we first see the name Thomas, the apostle Thomas, where Thomas stands as the seventh, okay, where it stands as the seventh, but in the 3rd of Mark's and in the 6th of Luke's gospel, it stands as the 8th in the apostolic series. Can someone can one of the scholars please check Matthew chapter 10? Okay, check Matthew chapter 10 and then copy paste where it has Thomas. Okay, I believe it's Matthew chapter 10, verse 7. The next one is but in the 3rd of Mark's. So I guess that's Mark 3, Mark chapter 3. Let's look at the verse where Thomas' name shows up. And then I think it's Luke chapter 6. And we'll check the verse where where Thomas's name shows up, okay? It stands in the 8th in the apostolic series. So I want to understand what he's talking about. It stands in the 8th in the apostolic series. I don't know what he's talking about. So can someone look that up, please? Saint Peter in every one of the list being invariably the first. Okay, so he's naming, I guess he's comparing what number Thomas came in, right? In terms of the mentioning of them in each of those gospels. Well, let's continue. Saint Peter in every one of the lists being invariably the first. Okay, and Saint Judas Iscariot, the 12th of the apostles. Okay, so it appears that in Luke chapter 6, Mark appears to be the 8th apostle, but you know, we need to confirm it. I don't know why he's getting at it, but we'll figure it out. The character of Thomas appears in no other parts of the second scene, except this of his unbelief in the resurrection of Christ, that of his remark previous to the resurrection of Lazarus in the 11th chapter of John, when he said in the contemplation that Jesus would die at Jerusalem, quote, "Let us also go that we may die with him," end quote. That of his direct contradiction to Jesus in the 14th of the gospel, when Jesus had said, "Whether I go, ye know, and the way ye know," end quote. And Tom said, quote, "We do not know whether thou goest, and how can we know the way?" End quote. And his share in the answer which 6 of the disciples make to Peter after Christ's resurrection when he said, quote, "I go a fishing," end quote. And they said, quote, "We also go with thee," end quote. Neither of the other gospels mention a word about St. Thomas more than his name, more than his name in the list. And only this gospel of St. John gives us his surname, or the interpretation of his name, Thomas, quote, "which is called Didymius," end quote. That is to say, a twin. So when we hear twins, we should think what? Gemini, right? So Thomas, that is to say, a twin, or one of the twins, of which amount the whole testimony. The sum is, first, that something more was known and understood of the part of Thomas, and understood of part that Thomas should bear in the sacred allegory by the writer of the 4th gospel, then by either of the writers of the first 3 gospels. Let me read that again, or at least part of it. First, that something more was known and understood of the part that Thomas should bear in the sacred allegory. Okay, so in other words, the 4th gospel writer knew more about Thomas and what he had to do in the gospel story than the 3. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So John knew more than the others. That's what he's saying. 2, that it was not distinctly known between Matthew, Mark, and Luke whether Thomas was the 7th or the 8th apostle. Y'all got that? Y'all got that? Now that's something I never paid attention to. I never paid attention to that. Okay, so it was not distinctly known between Matthew, Mark, and Luke whether Thomas was the 7th or the 8th disciple. Third, that John, who has given us no list of the disciples at all, by interpreting for us the name Thomas as signifying Didymius, that is to say, a twin, has left it doubtful whether he might not have been the 6th or the 5th. in the glorious company. Wow. All right. So why would the list of who got called first be messed up, y'all? Why wouldn't that be clear? I think that's the author's point so far. But whichever he be, the essentiality of his character is his connection with Jesus in the mystery of the resurrection, either in that resurrection of which Jesus is the agent and raises the dead man, or that in which he is the patient, that is, the dead man himself who was raised. So in other words, is Jesus the one who performed the resurrection, or did Jesus have nothing to do with it, right? But Jesus was the dead man himself. In the first enigma, we are instructed that if Jesus were to die, Thomas would die. In the second, that if Jesus were not to rise again, or a doubt could possibly be entertained on that subject, Thomas would give up his place in the apostleship. Oh, that's interesting, right? That's interesting. In the first enigma, we are instructed that if Jesus were to die, Thomas would die. Okay? That's the first. Jesus died, Thomas died. In the second, that if Jesus were not to rise again, or a doubt could possibly be entertained on that subject, Thomas would give up his place in the apostleship. All right, so I think I understand what he's saying. He's saying that if Jesus was not to be resurrected and Thomas didn't believe, why isn't he kicked out? That's what I'm thinking he's saying. So let me scroll down for y'all. Oh, wow. I went a whole page, y'all. My bad. I went a whole page. Make sure y'all download the PDF, okay? It's kind of a little bit cumbersome for me to read and look up and read to try to make sure the screen is all right. So please bear with me. Okay, we're on the last paragraph here, right here. All right, with this most curious analogy that the state of doubt in Thomas' mind as to whether his master was risen or not, in other words, Thomas is not buying that he was resurrected. All right. With this most curious analogy, that the state of doubt in Thomas' mind as to whether his master was risen or not lasted exactly 8 days. And then his faith in Christ began at his fingers' end. And see, that's the thing with me. I'm more inclined to believe it if I see it, right? I don't see anything wrong with that. To me, that's practical. To me, it's unreasonable for me to have to believe something that I haven't seen. That don't make sense to me. But anyway, I always had a problem with that. But let's continue. Seeing was not believing, hearing was not believing. Thomas must have a finger in the pie before he would be satisfied, right? Thomas needed to see it to believe it. He would not be content with ocular proof nor oral proof. He needed to touch it. He would have tangible proof, right? He didn't want to see it, you know. He didn't want to hear about it. He wanted to touch it. And then the author says, and so would I, or any other sensible man. In other words, everybody would want to touch it, right? You want to touch it to make sure it's true. Before I would believe anything that a dead man had to say for himself. Y'all see that? That makes total sense, doesn't it? If you claim you're dead, right? You claim you were dead. Now I can see you and I can hear you, but I'm looking at it in today's term. For all I know, you could be a holographic projection, right? Or I could be hallucinating. You know what I mean? So I want to touch it. I want to touch it before I believe, right? I need to see some evidence because you're supposed to have died. Nobody comes back from the dead, right? But anyway, that's the author's point. Let me see, how long have we been? So we've been going 1 hour, so I think we'll do a half hour more. All right. So let's continue. Let me get the page set up. Let's get the page set up. All right. And here we are. That this tangible and feeling proof was afforded to Thomas makes it only so much more miraculous and not a little bit unfair that the like should have been withheld from the Lady Mary Magdalene when she met her sweet Jesus, as Juliet met her Romeo by moonlight in the garden. Oh boy. And when she said to him, not rabbi, as they say to a Jew, nor a rabbit it, as you or I might have said, but Rabboni. But raw bones would not stand it and said, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, end quote. As if there were something in his bones that would not bear touching, till he had gone a little more flesh on them, which cannot but lead us to look with a little severer criticism into the terms of the privilege granted to Thomas. In other words, why didn't he let the woman touch him, right, when he was first walking out of the tomb? He wouldn't let her touch him, but why did he let why did he let Thomas touch him? Okay, so let's see what the author has to say. Let's see what he gives us. He continues, and in adhering to the strict letter of the sacred text, you will find that Thomas was not allowed to touch Christ any more than Mary had been. He was not permitted to feel with his fingers, but he was to see with his fingers. The terms being not reach hither thy finger and feel, but reach hither thy finger and behold. Okay, so that's a good point. That's a good point. Reach with your finger so you can see, not reach with your finger so you can touch. So where is this? What does this all mean? All right, let's keep going. So that Thomas, after all, saw no more of his Savior than a man could see with his fingers. Quote, and reach hither thy hand and thrust it into my side, which was a thing, if Jesus had really been a living man. Absolutely impossible to have been done. Well, that was something I was thinking about. Like if you have a wound like that and somebody puts their finger, it would hurt. Okay, y'all? I mean, that would be some for real pain. All right? It would be some for real pain. Okay? Should be infected. Okay? It should be infected, right? Because you're walking around with an open wound in your hands and chest, right? You know, the dirt blowing in. You ain't washed it in several days, right? So it should be pretty dirty, pretty smelly, and a whole lot painful. All right, so let's continue. Okay. If Jesus had really been a living man, absolutely impossible to have been done. That's sticking your finger in one of those wounds. Nor is it at all asserted or implied in the text that it was done. Y'all hear that? Nor is it at all asserted or implied in the text that it was done. So why is it that everybody thinks that Thomas put his finger in the wound? If y'all look on the picture for this video, the thumbnail, the artist I remember correctly, has Thomas with his finger in the wound. But let's continue. Nor is it at all asserted or implied in the text that it was done. Only Thomas rapped out an oath, my capital Lord and my capital God. So in other words, Thomas never did it. He just said the statement that we just read, my capital Lord and my capital God. With Beza and Unitarians consider as a mere ejaculation of surprise and astonishment, as when anybody threads on our toe, we cry, oh, Lord, or oh, good capital God, for which capital God forgive us. But with Trinitarians, and I with them, most sincerely hold to be a profession of faith, that is, a declaration of Thomas that from that time forth, he should hold the risen Jesus to be his capital Lord and his capital God. In the case of unbelieving Thomas, let me scroll that up for y'all, right? I'm not doing so good tonight. Let's see. Okay, so in the case of unbelieving Thomas, if you chose to understand it as history, which I am sure it is not, you see, as a majority of cases from the beginning of Scripture to the end, the great advantage of being an infidel. It is not belief, but unbelief that is the safe side. And let the gospel be the word of capital God by which our souls shall be tried. All the hazard, all the daring, all the likelihood to be eternally damned, and most richly to deserve to be damned, is incurred by the believer. So the author is saying if you believe in these Bible stories, you are in bad shape. That's what he's saying. So let's see whether or not he can prove it. Let's see if he can prove it. Let me see, what page are we on? Give me 1 second, y'all. 183. Let's see if he can prove it. 183. All right. Okay. So here we go. 100 text pledge safety and security, and that he could not be on better ground than he is. To the honest infidel, for one that holds out a chance of salvation, to the fool of a believer, the infidel is as safe as the holy apostle Thomas, who was not a whit more incredulous than every other sensible man ought to be. The infidel is as safe as the immediate family and relatives of Christ himself, quote, for neither did his brethren believe in him, end quote. John the 5, that's John chapter 5. So the author is saying you're better off doubting, right? Don't believe stuff, research it out. This is what I think he's saying, but don't believe it just because you've been told it, right? All right. So he continues, whereas the believer who knew his capital Lord's will and did it not shall be beaten with many stripes. So the author is saying if you believe, right, now you're already open to getting a beating. Whereas if you don't believe, you're not. So in his opinion, you're better off not believing because you're not going to get a beating. That's what I think he's trying to say with that. Whereas if you're a believer, you're up for a beating. Okay. But anyway, I think he's being sarcastic. Let's continue. Whereas the believer who knew his capital Lord's will and did it not, he did not do it, shall be beaten with many stripes. The believer that said his prayers for And because of his saying his prayers, which no wise or good man would ever think of doing, shall receive greater damnation. Y'all hear that? So the believer who says his prayers will receive greater damnation, whereas the infidel, the person who doesn't believe but is asking questions, you don't have to worry about getting beaten or damned, right? That's his point. So let's go to the next paragraph. Why then this mighty hue and cry against unbelief? This beggarly track circulating, this zealous preaching against unbelievers, as if there were no sin in the world but unbelief. Well, that's a good point, right? Christians do make a big deal about people who don't believe. But because unbelief is fatal to priestcraft, y'all got that? They make, according to the author, they make a big deal out of this belief because it's fatal to the priestcraft if you don't believe. All right? If you don't believe, it's fatal to the priestcraft. That's why they make such a big deal out of believing. So let's continue. Unbelief doeth spoil. Okay, so here we are here. Unbelief doeth spoil the gospel trade. Unbelief doeth spoil the gospel trade. Unbelief doeth hinder the craftsman of the money. Unbelief doeth hinder the craftsman of the money. They would receive from letting their seats in their chapels. Y'all got that? You don't believe, you're not going to go to church. You don't go to church, well, that cuts off the money, right? That's a problem. And hence it is, they would rather make their peace with the greatest murderer or thief that was ever hanged or unhanged than have a good word to say about the best man that ever breathed if they were an infidel. In other words, the infidel has no value because he's not going to pay you. He's not going to come to church and he's not going to pay you, right? Whereas the worst criminal, rapist, murderer, liar, cheat, adulterer, oh, he's welcome. Repent, believe, and come give us that 10% or double type, right? Triple type. I'm joking. Thomas, like all the rest of the heroes of the gospel, is a character wholly unknown, unheard of, untraced, and untraceable in any legends, but those of the Church of Rome. Those of the Church of Rome. All right. What about the Hebrew Israelites? Are they connected with the Church of Rome, therefore, because they're using the Gospels? Something to think about, right? Thomas, like all the rest of the heroes of the Gospel, is a character wholly unknown, unheard of, untraced, and untraceable in any legends but those of the Church of Rome. So the whole historicity, according to this author, the entire historicity of these Gospels is with the Church of Rome. With the Church of Rome. That means if you're following the Gospels, you are reliant on the Church of Rome. You got everything from the Church of Rome. You got it all, or they got it all and gave it to you from the Church of Rome. So what does that mean? What does that bode for you? What does that say about the authenticity of that information? Do you have to explain it away or create some doctrine so that you can then be able to stomach it and accept it, right? Like, for example, well, the Church of Rome, the Catholic Church, they did this to try to trick us so that we wouldn't recognize the Christ figure. That's the common story that Christians will tell. I don't know what the Hebrew Israelites tell, But that's a big problem when you start thinking about this, right? The Church of Rome, who let the doctrine of discovery, unum sanctum, these are the same people who created the papal bulls to kill you and take your property and to enslave you physically and mentally. This is where you get the Christ figure. But anyway, let's keep and the Gospels. Let's continue. Let's continue. All right. So Church of Rome, which no sensible man of the present day was the early 1800s. No sensible man in the early 1800s would any more think of quoting as history. In other words, in the 1800s, no reasonable person would quote the Church of Rome, anything that they said, as being something that actually happened in history. Y'all got that? Thomas, like all the rest of the heroes of the Gospels, is a character wholly unknown, unheard of, untraced, and untraceable in any legends but those of the Roman Catholic Church, or the Church of Rome, which no sensible man of the present day, no sensible man in the early 1800s, 1810, 1820, 1830, would any more think of quoting as history than he would as the Arabian Nights, entertainments, or the history of the 7 champions of Europe. Origen, an Egyptian monk, quoted by Eusebius, tells us that Thomas went and preached to the Medes and Persians, the Caramanians, the Bascarians, and the magicians. He is generally called the Apostle of India. Thomas is called the Apostle of India. And the Greek church professes to believe that his body, that's Thomas, after his death was miraculously transported to Edessa. Miraculously transported to Edessa. Some Portuguese writers assure us that he suffered martyrdom at Maliapur in the peninsula of India. Wow. Excuse me. While the Meninches affirm that a man who struck him was killed by a lion. The whole Protestant world is wisely aware that the less inquiries of this sort are persecuted, the better. So in other words, the whole Protestant world said, the less people ask about it, the better. All historical writers, without excepting one, have been infidels. So in the 1800s, when the author gave this sermon, he's saying all historians didn't believe in the Bibles, except for one. This is what he's saying. They would never concede to take the least notice of the heroes of theology. Let's continue. It was necessary to invent the story that one of the apostles had preached the gospel in India. Why is it necessary? Well, let's see what the author says. St. Thomas, therefore, as the genius of that month in which the sun is the hottest, was fixed on as the proper saint for the hot climate. Oh, well, that makes sense, right? Sun's in the zenith, I think, in June. Or is it July? I think it's June. It's in the zenith in June. That's the hottest month. India is a very hot place, right? So at the time that this book, when the author gave these sermons, 1810, 1820, 1830, what were the boundaries of India? That's what we need to know, right? All right, so let's continue. All right, so St. Thomas, therefore, as the genius of that month in which the sun is hottest, was fixed on as the proper saint for that hot climate to counteract the awkward historical evidence found in the Bhagavad Purana, which proves that the gospel had been preached in India. Y'all hear that? Okay. The Bhagavad Purana proves that the gospel had been preached in India more than 1,500 years before its Jewish origin had pretended. Both the names of Saint Thomas, both the names of Thomas and Didymus are names of pagan deities. And what is still more fatal to the pretense of a distinction between Christianity and paganism, those deities bear precisely the same character and part in the pagan mythology as the Christian gospel. Y'all hear that? So not only are the deity names, what they're doing, the roles are the same, right? The activities, the roles are the same. One of the most distinguished surnames of the deity Apollo was Didymus. So the surname of Apollo was Didymus. That name signifying a twin, and Apollo was called Apollo Didymaeus as dispenser of the twin light. See y'all? See twin light, or light by both day and night. So it's another parallel with the twin, right? All right, so wow, sorry about that, y'all. Y'all can read this when you go back. I think this video series, you're gonna have to watch these videos more than once. At least most people will have to watch them more than once in order to really get it. All right, so now let's continue. The month of May is subscribed in the calendar of Julius Caesar, quote, under the protection of Apollo. So May is under the protection of Apollo in the calendar of Julius Caesar. As everyone knows, that the twins Gemini is, to this day, the name of the third of the 12 signs of the zodiac, reckoning Aries the first, that is, the fifth, reckoning Aquarius, the water bearer, the first. The sun, that's the sun, entering Gemini on the 19th of May, quits it for Cancer. The sign immediately following on the 20th of June. Now, the Hebrew name for the month of June happens to be none other than the direct basis of this word, Thomas, Tammuz. Y'all hear that? Now, the Hebrew name of the month of June happens to be none other than the direct basis of this name, Thomas, which is Tammuz. And thus, Didymaeus, i.e., the twin, is not an interpretation of the name Thomas, but a surname added to it. Didymaeus expressing the 13 days which the sun, sun, of Gemini, the twins, takes out of the month of May. Y'all got that? Didymaeus expressing the 13, that's 13 days, which the sun, sun, of Gemini, the twins, takes out of the month of May. And Thomas, the remaining 19, the remaining 19 out of the month of June. The whole Didymaeus, Thomas, or Thomas, Didymaeus, exactly defining the relationship of this sign of the zodiac. As Didymaeus was a synonym, was a synonymous name of the Grecian Apollo, so Thomas was the perfect synonym of the Phoenician Adonis. Now check this out, y'all. Check this out. As each name traced its primitive roots, so we're getting into etymology, right? Its primitive roots, and also what? Linguistics, right? Same. As each name traced its primitive roots, most clearly demonstrates. Ad, A-D, meaning the capital Lord. On, O-N, meaning the being, B-E-I-N-G. Is, I-S, meaning the fire. That is the capital Lord, the one, the fire, that is the sun. The fire, that is the capital Lord, the one, the fire, that is the sun. Let me scroll down so y'all can see it. My bad again. Oh, what's this, 185? Yeah, 185, all right. Okay, so yeah, we're here. All right. Okay, so here we are. Note these next paragraphs, y'all. In the pagan fable, believed to be the son, S-O-N, of the Virgin Mithra, the son of the Virgin Myra, M-Y-R-R-H-A. In the pagan fable, believed to be the son, S-O-N, of the Virgin Myra by her own father, Cinyras. In the Christian fable, believed to be the son, S-O-N, of the Virgin Mary by her own capital G-O-D. Watch this, y'all. This is mind-blowing. Worshipped, let me highlight this for y'all. I want y'all to give this special attention. Special attention. Let me highlight it. Y'all see that? This is worth the whole lesson. This is worth the whole lesson. Let me go back to it. I'm going to go through this slowly. Here we go. Worshipped by the demi-humanized orange otangs, whom we call Jews, to this day under the name of Adonai, which they always substitute in the place of the name Yahu, which we pronounce Jehovah. The footnote reads, Adonai is literally my capital L-O-R-D in the plural. Adonai is my capital L-O-R-D in the singular. Adonis, the L-O-R-D, that's the capital L-O-R-D, the being, the fire, the sun, in the full nominative sense. Now, you in the Strong's lexicon or even in the Brown Driver Briggs, you will not see the being and the fire. I would love to know which lexicons he's using. I have one of his lexicons, but that's not the point I want to make to y'all. My question, as a matter of fact, I hope y'all don't mind, but I want to call Darrell-El out because I think Darrell-El will know the answer. But this is for everybody. Shalom, Darrell-El. This is for everybody. Take a look at this. It says, worship by the savage hordes. Y'all see that? From whom the Jews believe themselves to be descended under the name of Tammuz from the days of an infinitely remote antiquity. Now it says worship by the savage hordes from whom the Jews believed themselves to be descended. Okay, so now let's go back up here. So my question is to Darrell-El. If you, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but I think you know the answer. Worship by the demi-humanized orange outtangs, whom we call Jews. Worship by the savage hordes, from whom the Jews believe themselves to be descended. So the Jews believe themselves to be descended from these savage hordes. So Darrell-El, may I ask you, please, could you copy paste the meaning of demi, D-E-M-I, in the chat? Please, could you do that? Could somebody copy paste the meaning of demi, D-E-M-I, copy paste it, put it in the chat, please. I want y'all to see this. I want you to see this. Roderick's point of view, if you're still with us. Darrell-El, if you're still with us, could you please do that for me? Also, could somebody copy paste orange outrangs, O-R-A-N-G hyphen O-U-T-A-N-G-S. Please get the definitions of those and copy paste them in the comment section, please. I want to show y'all this. If y'all still here with me, I'm gonna give it a second, okay, to see if y'all can do it. While I wait, I'm gonna check the comments. All right. So let me go through some of these comments, okay, y'all. Okay, so Jerry says, yeah, I got it. I get it. Roderick's point of view says, what people need to realize and understand is if these people didn't speak Latin, then how did they make it into Latin? Yeah, I've often heard that Latin is really something called Moorish. No, Spanish is Moorish Latin, something like that. But I agree with you. Jerry says he was pointing. Roderick's point of view says, well, the preachers always say that he put his finger into the side of Jesus. We don't see it in the text, but the preachers say that's what happened. That's right. That's right. And so it's a good example. And they got me with it too, because the text doesn't say that, right? But because they suggested it, I was hypnotized into seeing it the way they saw it, right? Through the power of suggestion. That's hypnosis, okay? Mind control. Roderick's point of view says, to me, it says that the Gospels was created by the Church of Rome. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Darrell-El says, Apostle Paul went to Judas' house and got healed by Ananias, the one who was killed by the Hakodesh and his friends with the Asiarchs, an arm of the Roman priesthood. Okay, I never knew that. Okay, Darrell-El, sorry about that, Darrell-El. Let me place your comment up. All right. Darrell-El continues to say, we are really supposed to trust Paul's writing? I think not. Darrell-El, yes. Okay. Thank you. Gary Tucker, Shalawama, my brother. All right. Excellent. Demi, half size, 2, partially, an inferior degree, demigod. Darrell-El writes, demi-human, a member of a human-like race. Y'all got that? Human-like in fantasy, sometimes distinguished from more bestial humanoid races. Roderick's point of view, I'm here, but I'm at work, so it's kind of tough for me to stop. Okay, I understand that. I understand that. Did anybody see the definition of demi to be half? Did anybody see that definition? Just half? Okay. A human-like race. Human-like race. Kind of a man, mankind. Can someone look up orang? O-R, look this up. I'm going to put it in the chat. Orang, outrangs. All right, y'all see that? Outtangs, rather. Can somebody look that up and put it in the chat? I want y'all to see this. I don't want to say it. I want you to see it for yourselves. Okay, it's O-R-A-N-G and then O-U-T-A-N-G-S. Somebody look that up, copy paste it. Okay. Now, the author gave this sermon March 13th, 1831. Demi, D-E-M-I means half or human like. Human like. Half or human like. Let me see. I think it'll be faster if I look up outranks myself. Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, did someone get it? Okay, Darrell-El. Thank you, Darrell-El. Outranks. Orangutans are great apes native to the rainforest of Indonesia and Malaysia. They are now found only in parts of Borneo and Sumatra. So when you look up the word that the author used, which is orang-outangs, modern English, that's called an orangutan. It's a large primate. It's a large monkey, right? Now, let's read this again, y'all. Let's read it again. Worshipped by the demi-humanized orangutans. These are what? Red, orange color primates, right, y'all? Red, orange color primates. Worshipped by the demi-humanized, half human, human-like orangutans. Worshipped by the half human, human-like orangutans, whom we call Jews. To this day, what do we have? What do we have? Gary Tucker writes, orangutan, noun, a large anthropoid ape, Pongo pygmaeus, of the forest of Sumatra and Borneo, with shaggy, reddish brown hair. Jerice writes, I gotta. Okay, Jerice writes, Saraglio videos, everyday real talk. So do y'all see what's happening here? Darrell-El, Egyptian thought the baboons are wise humanoids. According to Moorish science, right here in Yucatan, Mexico, where I'm at, the research was done to create the hybrid troglodyte nigger. The hybrid troglodyte nigger. Okay, this is the genetically engineered creature who is classified or who classifies itself as white people now. Y'all follow me? This is the Neanderthal. Okay, the black chimpanzee is the most violent of the chimpanzees. According to Moorish history, I'm sure Darrell-El knows this. I think Gary Tucker knows this also. According to Moorish history, the origin of these quote unquote white people is the egg of a Moabitess, the egg of a Moabite woman, and the sperm of that black chimpanzee. The purpose of the experimentation was to create a creature that could understand language, but who had the strength of an animal, but who could understand simple commands. This correlates also with the Nation of Islam story about Yaqub, right? So the idea was to create this creature who could have some ability to communicate. You could talk to him, tell him what to do, and they could listen and understand. And they could work the fields, they could row the boats, and they can also fight in wars for you. Okay? So what's happening here with the orangutan? And I don't know, this stood out to me, right? This stood out to me. But what about this red-hued certain group of those who are classified as white people who are red? What about it? I don't know, right? I don't know. But it struck me as worth bringing up the topic because the author says, Gary Tucker says, also a new Inky and Enil story. The author is telling us worship by the demi or half human, human-like orangutans, whom we call Jews. Y'all see that? Whom we call Jews. Now, if anybody follows my work, y'all know that I always say that we, the House of Yasharallah, are not Jews. The Jews came about during or shortly after Babylonian captivity. And all of that history, all Josephus, all the wars of the Jews, what's the book? Y'all know the book with the wars of the Jews, the Maccabees. All of that, it's fiction, total fiction, right? Go back and check Deuteronomy chapter 29 and start at like watch the video on my homepage that I have on YouTube that I have with Sonetta. It goes into it. Watch that. Okay. You will see that we never went back to the promised land after we left Babylon. If in fact we ever went to Babylon, maybe this is the Babylon, right? We never returned to the promised land because it was a burning waste, a desert like Sodom and Gomorrah. So these Jews, right? Semi-human orangutans who we call Jews. That squares up with what the Moors say about the origin of these people, these hybrid troglodyte nigger Europeans. Y'all follow me? Jerry said, I meant to listen to your videos every day. Excellent, my brother. You learn a lot. But anyway, I wanted to show y'all this because this came from the 1800s. Okay, this is a secret society member who turned rebel because his conscience started eating away at him. And now he's saying that those Jews are half human, semi-human, human-like, those Jews. So we know they're not talking about us, right? Because we're fully human, right? We don't have large numbers of us who are looking red, okay, or who have that. We have some people who have red hair, but that's normal. But to have like this huge number of red, vicious type of people, we don't have that amongst us. Anyway, let me know what y'all think about that. Let me know what y'all think about that, because this struck me. I was actually shocked, right? Because this correlates again with the Neanderthal story of modern science today. It correlates with the Yaqub story of the Nation of Islam, and it correlates with the Moors story about the origin of these so-called white people, right? Being produced through genetic engineering experiments in the Yucatan, where they, and then the actual creature was actually created in Argentina. I believe it was Argentina, yeah. But it's the egg of a Moabite woman, that would be so-called black woman today, and the sperm of the black nigger chimpanzee. That's where we get hybrid troglodyte nigger, right? So it's not an insult. That's just a scientific name for it. But modern times they call it Neanderthal. Anyway, that's what I really wanted to share with y'all. And we can pick up tomorrow. But let me know what you think about this in the comments about this orangutan, right? All right, so with that, I'm going to say Shalawama. We went to, it's 11:45 p.m., so we went an hour and 45 minutes. So let's close out here so that we don't make the video too long. People might not, they might be afraid to get started if it's too long, according to what people have told me. But anyway, I want to say thanks, y'all, for coming in. Really appreciate that. And make sure that you come to class if you're able, Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It won't cost you anything. Remember to click on the links for the 506 The Curses course. That's what it's called, 506 The Curses course. The link is in the description area. It's free, but make sure you read the class description. Okay, you get 2 free classes. It won't cost you anything, and you're going to learn a lot. It's going to be fun, right? Because we got some really good people who are real nice people too. Make sure also that you subscribe to 101 Ancient Ibriath. All right, make sure you subscribe. Support our work by buying our books. If you like the information, you appreciate what we're doing, and you want more, and you want to help us grow, consider buying our books. I think we have 7 books with links in the video description. You can do that, and you're gonna learn a lot, you know. Or if you want to give a donation, that's cool too. Our PayPal is there. But we have a lot of books, right? And we offer classes, and the 101 course, the 101 Ancient Ibriath course, that's $10, is basically free. You know, one of the things I struggled with was that if I put it out there for such a low price, like $10, people wouldn't appreciate it, you know. But you know, when you put a price on something that reflects its value, people tend to appreciate it. You know, it's almost like it builds in demand and value. But I didn't want to do that because I want to make this available for everybody. But anyway, if your financial situation allows for it, go ahead and get it, because this is how to reclaim our heritage. The culture is in the language. And if you don't have time to do it, you can get a subscription to someone else. But anyway, thanks, y'all. I appreciate y'all spending the evening with me. I had fun. And I would really like to know what y'all think about this demi-human, this half-human, right? I would really like to know what y'all think. If y'all agree with those correlations, if you disagree, why? If you see some other connection, what might that connection be? Like, for example, I see Darrell-El says, Darrell-El writes, Egyptian thought and baboons are wise humanoids, right? Also, Anu, Enki, and Elil story. Let me see, what else do we see? But yeah, if y'all know some other stuff, some other correlations, go ahead, put it in there. And let's make this powerful. Let's make it powerful. Darrell-El writes, demi-human, a member of a human-like race. So these these Jews were a human-like race. Now, if y'all follow my lectures, you're going to see that Genesis chapter 1 is a created creature. It's a completely different creation story than Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 1 would be the creation of the Neanderthal, the creation of the demi humanoid. Y'all follow me? But anyway, I want to say thank you, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Again, all schedule is Eastern Standard Time, Monday 9 p.m., Tuesday 10 p.m., Wednesday 10 p.m., Thursday 10 p.m., Friday 9 p.m., Saturday 8 p.m., and Sunday 2 p.m., all Eastern Standard Time. All right, y'all. So I'll see y'all tomorrow. Shalom.